All right, we're live. We're back after a couple weeks of a break from UFC action. There was a lot of MMA stuff going on in that time, of course, with the PFL and Bellator, but we're not here to talk about that because people beat that like a dead donkey for a couple of weeks, or not even for a couple of weeks, for the last couple of months. So let's focus on some actual fights that happened. And yeah, UFC Austin was, man, it was billed as one of the best cards. Dan Hooker dropped off, but Jalin Turner came in and filled in that spot real nicely. Um, yeah, we're gonna get deep down into all the matchups, starting with the main event. Before we get into all of that, make sure you guys go in the descriptions and download the AllStar app. And yeah, make your picks on UFC fights. J Spec's got the league going on. J Spec, what's the update on that?
All right. So many of our great users are reestablishing their accounts and still getting their stuff back. So still in the fairness of spirit of fair play. Just like last month, I'm going to forego the monthly championship prize. I still have a league though; it's still up. If you want to play, challenge yourself. We still have a league. It's just a no prize league this time. It says it this time too. But I will have separate giveaways this month. You guys seen that I went and hung out with Anthony Noy, got some signed glove for you fellas and ladies. We're going to be doing giveaways throughout this month. And for the pay-per-view event, as always, playing with the AllStar app, best picker in my space will win something awesome too. Haven't revealed what that something awesome is yet because I got so much awesome stuff to give. I'm not trying to overstep myself. There you go. That's what's going on.
All right. So he gives us the update. Yeah, on the app. Um, Recently there was some kind of update that happened. So if you did, get reset or you lost your account is not lost. Just send them a message and then they'll reestablish everything, right? Up whatever belt you're at, whatever level you're at, all of that stuff. My account was reset and then I sent them a message and then they fixed it and now I'm back to normal. So yeah, just be patient and message them. It's the app's still in the works. We're fixing all the bugs. What I mean, it takes a little bit of time to get it 100%. So don't worry. But JSpecs League is always there, and you could always win a prize for your knowledge and your luck. What I mean? It's a lot of it's luck. Come on, let's be real.
It
Gambling is luck.
is.
Picks are
It
luck.
is. It
And
is.
our
100%.
guest Colin, thank you, Colin, for coming in, man. We're gonna jump into it real fast with you. Let's get into this main event from UFC Austin. Arman Tsarukyan versus Beneil Dariush. A lot of people were like, "This is Beneil's fight to lose." I think a lot of people thought that coming into this fight. People were picking Beneil. What I mean? Of course, Beneil's a phenomenal talent, but Arman showed us that he is next level. He has shown us improvements every time out. Even in his losses, to be honest with you, he has shown improvements. And this one, he just came in and released it all for us to see. Colin, what do you think of Arman? And after that, talk about Beneil and what position he is in now.
Absolutely. Excuse me. Thank you, John. And man, I got to tell you guys, if you want to be with the best, when you're with the All Stars, you're with the best. You got Jay Speck and Curry and John. You guys can't have better people if you want to be with the experts. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So basically, Arman Tsarukyan, 27 years old, not even really quite yet at his athletic peak, they say, which starts for male athletes at about 28 years old, but very close enough. And for the early start he got and the good training he got, he's looking really amazing. I think everyone knew at 22 years old when he fought a 26-year-old Islam Makhachev and really pretty much held his own. And I think it was short notice. That said something right there because, like in gambling, I fade 22-year-olds every day, all day, every day. And it's just they usually don't have the maturity yet to do really well under fire. And for making your UFC debut to have that on your mind and then to face Islam Makhachev, although not everyone knew who he was then, but still the reputation being Habib's protege, and for Arman to have done that well then put him on people's radar. He came up slightly short against Matus Gamrot, but that was questionable. That was really, really close. And a lot of people thought he won that fight. And what I think of him, he's really an amazing fighter, very strong guy. I like how he's a very respectful guy. I like also how he shouted out that Beneil was probably the most respectful guy in the whole weight class. And Beneil is an amazing guy, truly religious man, God-fearing man, God-loving man. But yeah, Arman looked really, really good. Beneil got caught, I mean, it is what it is. And I don't think Beneil's going to make any excuse for himself. I thought he was winning that fight, although it was pretty close, but they were exchanging some kicks and punches, and Beneil was looking good, fighting very relaxed. And got to say, though, in 40 plus years of me following combat sports, that combination was really sick and really, really unique in that it was a head plumb to a knee. The knee missed, but like literally instantly, as soon as that knee was coming down, bam, the punch came right in. I mean, that's a pretty sick combo, and I think we might start seeing more of that if other fighters are smart, because it's kind of weird, and it also takes being really explosive and having a really good core to do that, where you're using the leg down here and your arm up here, and then this is up, and then immediately switching, bam. But that was a really amazing follow up, and Beneil got caught there, and sometimes that happens to the very best. But yeah, Tsarukyan is legit, and when he said that about Islam, that fighting Islam now at 27 years old with the experience he has and just the physical maturity, as compared to 22 years old, Islam better be careful, because he did really well. But now Islam could also say that he himself is better than he was at 26 years old or so. But still, I think Arman is a lot better than he was at 22, possibly more than Islam has improved. But look out, man. This kid is for real. And that's my thought on that.
Yeah, Arman, without a doubt, man, he's championship material. And I know your boy, Beneil, J-Spec, that's your boy. Let's get your side of the story, because there's some bias here.
You know what? Colin and Beneil are cool. Obviously, we're cool. I appreciate him as a human being so much, but that's got to be aside. I'm judging the fight here. Right, getting into that fight, John, me and you talked about this weeks ago. Play back the videos from our episodes. We talked about the exchange in the lightweight division and what's going to occur. There is a changing of the generations that is occurring, and that's a subtle difference. These guys are only a couple years apart, but it's happening, and it's happening right now. And boy, my heart last night, man, I felt like eating my socks, because we talked about this, and I was like, I almost predicted this happening, but why does this have to happen against the person I really, really appreciate?
Yeah.
And of course, that's the fight game. The fight game will get you in your soft spot every time, even as a fan, as an analyst. So with that being said, hats off to Arman Tsarukyan. This was maybe cliche, old lion versus young lion. I'll say it. And the young lion won this time, and won clearly. This was a devastation, and I hate to bring this up, but I have to. This is now 2 times in a row that Mr. Dariush has been wrecked, just completely demolished. Now, that is so uncharacteristic. What's the difference? He sucks now? No. Just father time and the level of competition, right? And it's okay. If you want to stay in the game, certain fighters at a certain spot got to realize they're not heading towards that championship. And it sucks, and maybe that loses all their motivation and they don't want to fight no more. Other fighters fight for money. And if that's the case, sir, I think you got to change your direction and maybe consider being an elite gatekeeper. I don't know why that word gets thrown around like it's a negative. If you're smashing hype trains and so-called, I think that's pretty good. So maybe, just maybe, that's what's got to happen. But as a whole, to the fight, this was the exchanging of the upper echelon of this division that me and Mr. Hyon called out clearly on multiple occasions right on the show. So that's my take.
Could I jump in real quick on that? It looks like John may be frozen, as he mentioned.
Yes.
Yep. So, yeah, I interviewed Beneil 5 days before the event. John's back. Cool. And we actually talked about that in the last part of the interview that I did with Beneil on the Monday 6 days ago. I said, I forgot exactly how I phrased it, but I said, I know you're not at that point, and I know you're not a 37 or 38-year-old fighter, but I said, do you have any out date? Do you have any idea like you want to go 3 to 4 more years, or 5 to 6, or 6 to 7, and maybe you'll be the Randy Couture and Dan Henderson of the lightweights and go 10 years, but do you have any thoughts? And he said no, he's not really thinking of that, but he said at the time, God will let him know. And I said, so you're not planning on being the guy that stays around accumulating a lot of losses? And he said, no, that's not going to be it. He said, God's going to let me know when it's that time, And because I think I remember now how I framed that question. He's been in the game for a long time. He, like Arman Tsarukyan, who he just fought, got into the UFC at like 22 years old, like almost the exact same age that Tsarukyan got in. And he's been in the game, in the UFC alone, for 12 years, almost 13. And I just like him so much. He's such a really good guy. And it's interesting because Beneil, I think, is probably one of the most religious Christians in the sport. And whatever religion you are, all respect to it. I don't put any one religion over another, but just a really, really religious guy. And you saw him coming in and giving the credit to God, to the Lord above. And it's frustrating to me sometimes how you can have someone that's so plugged in, that honors God so much, and is such a warrior, spreading the word of love and God and peace, and then having them knock the F out. It's just, it's sometimes it really hurts my heart, because I'm like, not that the other guy's a bad guy. Sarukian also
No,
is
and
a
yeah,
nice guy, right?
and I'm with you on that, buddy. And the thing with that is that I think Sarukian, and if you look at the internet's reaction, I'm just look, guys, go look. There's not much. Like normally when you dethrone someone of Dariush's caliber, there's this big rush. Everybody's saying crazy stuff like he's going to be the GOAT and 10-time defending division champion. But that's not it, right? Like, what's up, hype? Yeah, that's not the reaction we're getting, because
Right.
this is almost like when Holmes beat Ali, and I'm not
Like
saying it was
changing of the guard.
Yeah,
right?
when that happens, it doesn't always give you fandom, but it gives you credit, and everybody's
Yes.
giving him credit. Just because there's like that tug and pull, right? Like you're sad about Beneil, but you're happy for Arman, and I don't know. That's the way the room when we were all watching it with our fans, everybody kind of felt the same way.
Absolutely. I really liked how respectful it was. If you noticed, you guys I'm sure did, before the fight, Beneil went over and shook hands with each one of Arman's corner people and Arman. And it's just, you almost never see that. Like the respectfulness. Like, Beneil is a UFC legend, and he's a wonderful guy. There were several times when he was being restricted from doing or not restricted, he can do what he wants, but kind of from different sources. But they were saying, we got to watch the interviews, it's got to be only ESPN, this and that. And Beneil looked out for people that were interviewing him from the beginning, like myself. And he was like, let's do it, Colin. And I know that, like, powers that be were wanting to keep the interviews of top 5 guys to only really, really big media sources. And so I'll never forget that Beneil was like, let's do it, Colin, man, you've been with me from the nearly the beginning, so let's rock it. And so he's a really, really decent guy. When my wife passed away 3 months ago, I texted him and let him know. And it's not like we're buds or personal friends, so I figured maybe he'd get back to me in 5 days or 3 days or whatever. He got back to me within minutes and said, I'm so sorry for your loss, and she's up there with God, and stay strong, brother, and God will watch over her and you. And just, he's a really good man, 100% Beneil Dariush, and I hope he's back. Can he be a gatekeeper? Possibly so. I mean, could he make another run? It's so hard to say. I wish the best for him, and I think he would be an amazing coach if he decided at some point to hang up the gloves. But yeah, I'm glad he's okay. And he got caught. And I'm not, and I'll pass it on to you guys. I don't want to be doing like this filibuster here on your show, but sometimes it's better to get caught than be just beaten down with like a sustained beating by someone else to the point where nothing you're doing is working, right? Because in that case, it's kind of hard on your ego, and it also kind of demonstrates to people that this guy owned you on the feet, this guy owned you with the wrestling, this guy owned you with the grappling, he owned you with the Muay Thai, he owned you with the boxing. And in this case, none of that happened. in the exchanges, I had Beneil getting the slight better of it with the kicks, leg kicks, and other stuff, and then bang, boom, got caught. So I'm not taking anything away from Tsarukyan, but that it didn't show that Beneil was being owned in any aspect of the fight, except for that final combination. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, it's when a fight ends like that, you know, the guy that is getting finished, you got to think of it as positive as possible. You know what I mean? You got caught. It happens. It happens in training. You know what I mean? It happens in jiu-jitsu. It happens in kickboxing, Muay Thai. It happens in every combat sport. But this is for the world to see. This is different though. You know what I mean? The level is different. The paychecks are different. There's a
Right.
lot of changes,
Exactly.
on that win side or lose side. But yeah, you guys going back to what you guys were talking about the generations. If you look at the top 15, it's split between the older fellas versus the up and comers, right? So you got Oliveira, Gaethje, Poirier, Dariush, Chandler, who's more of the older guard, right? The guys that have fought each other multiple times, have put on some great fights, and clearly they're older. And some of them, yes, their chins are not as they're not like they were a few years ago, right? And a lot of these guys are getting way better, and it's catching up to them, right? Some guys they've sustained with the level of talent that they have for a long time, and then if you don't get better, you get passed up, and that's what happens a lot of the times with fighting, right? It's just logic, and yeah, you got Arman, you got Fiziev, Gamrot, you got
Jalin Turner.
Saint Denis, Jalin Turner.
Mhm.
These guys are the guys are the future of the division. These guys are the guys that are going to be champion. 50% of those guys that I just mentioned will be the champion eventually, right? It's just, are the old guard going to fight these young guards? They need to. They have to. The UFC needs to start forcing these fights, right? Because you can
Yep.
only have Gaethje fight Poirier.
Or Chandler.
Yeah,
So
it's
many
how many
times. Yeah.
times yeah, I mean, yeah, those are exciting matchups and great fights, but it's almost just to make money for the UFC. It's not like, for fight fans that know about these younger fighters coming up, you want to see those fights. You want to see the changing of the guard, you know what I mean? As as devastating it can be to a lot of these fighters, but man, Arman looks like he's going to be the champion in 2024. Like Islam, he's great, and he's shown so much improvement, and he's probably shown just as much improvement as Arman. But I think Arman he's just getting better and better and better, and you could see the leaps and bounds he's making. He will be champion. Gamrot is the guy that's interesting to me more than anybody, because he's like, I was talking with Dan Hooker about Gamrot. He's good at winning, but it's not like exciting. It's just like
Right.
he's good at
Never.
winning. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not a fight. It's not a fist fight. It's it's
Wrestling
hard to
fun.
like push guys like that to the front. But then you got Saint Denis, who is like Gamrot in a ways, but like he's out there starching guys, choking guys out. Like and he's got France as well.
Yeah.
Though there's a lot of factors in pushing a fighter to the forefront, and I think Saint Denis is going to get pushed. I think that he's going to get a good matchup in his next fight.
Mhm.
And I think he should fight Gamrot. I think
That would
that's
be
the
great.
fight to make.
That's a good
Gamrot's
matchup.
coming off a loss, right? Um, with going back to the fight though, with Arman, I think he fights like he said in the post fight. I think he said he fights Gaethje or he fights for the title. I believe so. I agree with him 100%. He fights Gaethje or he fights for the title, and that's Gaethje's in the same position, right? Either he fights Arman or he fights for the title. Who else
Right.
he's gonna fight?
Right.
All of
Right.
this, like, I'm going up to 170 and fighting until there's a matchup for me. I think the UFC should shut those things down. Unless you're, a champion and you've been a champion for a while, then it's a different story. But if you're ranked and you're in a good position, you should not be fighting in other divisions. You should be fighting guys that are getting you to the title or fighting for the title, right? Um,
Absolutely.
but
Agreed.
this MMA world, not even MMA world, this UFC world
Yeah.
is getting, there's more layers now, more than
Right.
ever, right? To
Definitely.
becoming a star, to becoming a champion. You know what I mean? But you could talk about fighters getting the push and all of that stuff, but they still have to win fights. You know what I mean? They still have to beat these guys that are in these positions, and it's not an easy thing to do. A lot of people doubted Sean O'Malley, man. They're pushing him and they're doing this, and now he's fighting for the title. He went in there and knocked out Sterling.
Yep.
Like clean. Like you cannot argue that. Like he's the
That's
world
it.
champ. He is one of the best dudes in the world. Like
Well,
I don't care about
Absolutely.
pushes or not, right?
we
So
argue about this rankings concept all the time. Like, look, Sean Strickland, number 7, jumped up, took out one of the best of our generation at being a champion in that weight class. Honestly, like the ranking is judged by who, like media members and like guys who don't actually fight. Like,
Right.
I mean, it's just as accurate as all these experts who call the NFL draft year after year after year. They make all these predictions, and they're like 10%
that's a good
accurate.
Yep.
job. That's a
Yeah,
good
they
job.
never
Man.
That's
get
a
yeah.
NFL
great
draft
job.
and then he'll
Excellent.
draft. It's a
Yeah,
good job.
just talk shit and just never be
Just
right.
predicting things that's not gonna happen.
Never
You know?
happen. Yeah, because if that was right, then somebody like real quick moment, San Francisco 49ers Brock Purdy wouldn't exist because he was dead last in the draft, and now people don't know. Don't let other people's opinions affect you, but it does when it comes to fighting. So I believe everybody in the top 10 is relevant for the title. Every single one of them should be fighting each other, no questions asked.
Absolutely. Could you guys see Michael Chandler, Arman Tsarukyan, who's going to come in more jacked battle? You know, those guys are both like fire plugs. I think they're both like about 5'8", give or take, and just cutting down from like 200 pounds to no, not 200, but from like 185 or so to like 155. That would be an interesting fight. You know, there's some really good fights out there, but yeah, the young guard. What you got actually Gen Z guys, some kind of older Gen Z guys going up against younger millennials, and the older Gen Z guys are under 30, and the younger millennial guys are like under 40. So it's kind of an interesting matchup because it's the generation from right before to like literally that next step in the new generation. So definitely some really good matchups I foresee in the future. And I agree. No reason to have these guys jumping into different weight classes. Jalin Turner on 10 days notice, though, that was a pretty good performance. Not to jump ahead of us, but it's unfortunate
Perfect.
that the referee let him take that kind of punishment when he's on his stomach. Not to go down the whole new rabbit hole, but with drilling down too much on that, because it might not be that interesting. But then again, maybe it is. I guess we'll find out. But we'll go with it, I guess, or I'll go with it as much as my guys here that run this want to do it. But it's so hard as a referee. It's one of the most thankless jobs there is. And all of a sudden, like, you're a referee that people think highly of, and then sometimes in one call, all of a sudden you drop from up here, boom, to a referee that people say sucks and is just a waste and a failure. And I think that the tough thing is that if a referee stops a fight early, then he actually is being made aware that his possible error in judgment influenced, possibly wrongly, the result of a fight in permanent record and in how much the next how much money the person is going to be paid next, what the ranking is going to be. So I think they look at that as that, ouch, I really don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to be credited with screwing up someone's career and making something go wrong right into record book, right? Whereas the other way, that's not a factor. But the only thing is, the other way, you're letting a fighter take unnecessary damage. And I think that, you don't want to do either. You always want to thread that needle absolutely perfect. But as we know, even us guys that don't do any sewing or knitting, at some point in our life as a kid, someone asked us to try to put a thread in a needle and, try to push it about 45 times, and then you can get it on the 50th time. So it's so hard, but I'm curious to see what you guys think. I mean, it seemed to me like it was late, not like some late calls in some regional shows that are absolutely sickening, but maybe a couple punches too late. What do you guys think?
Well, before we get into that, make sure you guys download the AllStar app. It's in the descriptions. Make picks, man. Everybody's making picks. Join JSpecs League. Everybody's on the league. Colin transitioned perfectly to the co-main event. Jalin Turner versus Bobby Green. Bobby Green, he's become this like cult character, so to
Iconic
say. You know
guy.
what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and he wears everything on his sleeve. He says what he thinks, and you got to respect that. and he's down to scrap. Like he's down to scrap in the hotel. You know what I mean? Like he's a real fighter. You know, there's not many guys left now that are kind of like this street fighter mentality. He's one of those guys. Like if
He's a
you say
real one, like
something,
they
if
say.
you
Yep.
step up to him, he will fight you. Like he will swing fists. There's guys that will get in your face and push you, and they know they kind of think it's just for the cameras and just for for some clips, get some hype going. But Bobby Green's, I don't think he's like that at all. I think he's a guy that will punch you in the face if you get too close. And he
Yep.
didn't want to get, you've seen the videos, right? But anyways, going back to the fight, Jalin Turner beat the shit out of that man, like seriously, like badly, and that was the ref's fault. You know what I mean? Like I'm not talking about the combination that rocked Bobby Green. And the crazy thing about Bobby Green is he got rocked and he was smiling. Did you see that? Like when he
Yep.
was rocked, he was smiling like, "Oh, you got me!" Like you could tell, like in his
Yep.
mind, like
Yep.
I love that attitude towards fighting too. Like his attitude is like, "Hey, I got caught. Like you win some, you lose some, you make some money." And then you go back to the gym and train and get the next matchup. But yeah, the referee, he didn't do a very good job. Referees, when you're at that level, you're supposed to be the highest level. You're supposed to be the UFC. Everybody's, oh, that's the NFL of MMA. That's the NBA of MMA, right? If you are, and if you got to be the highest level, you got the expectations of you as a referee is to be the best, right? And of course, you're gonna make mistakes, but those types of mistakes, like how many fights have you ref before that where you stopped them early, most likely some of them, and some of them late? You gotta be good at your job, man. You can't. Bobby Green, man, I think he took like more than like 10 heavy shots, like heavy shots to the back of the it looked like around the ear, side of the head, which are not fun. Just take one punch to the back of the head. You will understand, right? But yeah, the referee, they got to do better, man. I think the commissions, they're all a joke. Like I've always been transparent about my thoughts on commissions. They're a joke. They just steal money and from the fighters for stupid reasons, and they don't really have no solution to any problems. Couple do. They're trying, but most of them are just sitting back and doing nothing. But props to Jalin Turner. He's the king of Fontana. Both those guys are from Fontana, California. There was a lot of talk before the fight about they did have some scraps in the gym training together, and there was a little beef, but it didn't seem like it. You know what I mean? I think they're just pumping their chests out like who's the king of the town. You know what I mean? And that's a serious thing. Um, both those guys come from Fontana. If you know anything about Fontana, it's not the like ritziest area of California, right? Like it's rough out there, and both of them dug themselves out of that and became productive members of society in the fight game. Props to them on just doing that. But Jalin Turner, J Spec, what's next for him? What's next for Jalin Turner and Bobby Green?
You know what's up. Well, I don't know. Jalin Turner, like, isn't it funny that Jalin Turner pulled a Dan Hooker subbing for Dan Hooker? Like, that's pretty cool, actually, considering they had such a great fight together, right? So it's like, did like magical fighter spirit dust thing rub off? I don't know. But anyways, it's really cool to see. Not cool to see was the blown call. It's crazy that this fight, unfortunately, is a mix of like cool, but actually, let's focus on this negative. Mr. Turner, we're talking about Arman not really getting the proper amount of love per se for this win. I'm not really sure Mr. Turner's he's not getting any hate because it's not his fault, but he's not really getting maybe all the love he could for it either because it's so covered. Everybody wants to talk about the Mr. Kerry Hatley screwing up. I want to talk about Mr. Kerry screwing up. So I understand. And this is just the way life is right now on this topic. First off, shout out to Bobby Green, bro. I'm going to address those videos. I think it's crazy that they rolled up on you, try to punk you, and then try to leak it out to make you look a certain way. And then the other videos come out hours later showing that you stood up for yourself and made three men run and jump around like children trying to escape an angry grandma. Like, it was awesome, dude. Like, anyway, you won with the people. And you're winning again because Mr. Kerry Hatley, boy, he stepped in a bag of crap and he did it on a co-main event in front of the whole world. And I during the live space, I even defended him to a degree. Not in that moment, just his record. I said Mr. Kerry Hadley is not a bad ref in general. His overall record, he doesn't have. I don't even remember him having something like this. So they dropped the ball. But John is right. This is not. This is life and death, man. And Mr. Green is in his later part of his fight years. Those shots were not easy. And as someone who is interested in the reffing criteria and the judging criteria and everything the shenanigans of the commissions are up to, I look at that fight and I was just watching it live, not the replays, I swear. I saw a fighter get rocked, he was shook, then cracked and dropped, then his back had no way of answering and was eating heavy shots. The third punch in, that fight should have been called. It did go about 6 or 7 more punches, way too long, and it hurt. You could see the reaction by the people on the timeline. Look at it now. It's hurting. It hurts fans. It hurts the image. It hurts the sport. It's crazy how people want to talk about other things being bad for the sport, and a simple split-second decision changes so much stuff. But in the end, I'm glad Mr. Green is still healthy. He posted and released a video and stuff. So glad Mr. Green's good. Ms. Turner, great knockout, man. And Mr. Hatley, I'm not gonna like attack you, dude. Just good luck, man. Like, and I want to support Colin's statement. I see a lot. We watch a lot of fights, and there's a lot of fights that happen on the prelims, and people ain't watching. And these refs are saving guys' lives left and right all the time. So take it easy with the hate. Really watch a ref before you decide who's junk. There are some junk ones out there. Sometimes people have a bad call, and that's what it was.
But the referee, right? With the referee, remember, if you're in the NFL and you're ref in the NFL and you make a mistake, I think you deserve to be criticized heavily.
They
If
have
you're a
over.
referee,
Yeah, they have a referee review system, and it like moves
yeah,
your
but this is fighting.
priority.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
well, yeah, that's something that they have, which MMA probably doesn't have. I don't know. I don't know the details of like the commissions, but like it just seems like they have the same referees, and some of them you never even heard of. And you want referees to get a chance, right? But you don't want some guy like just started like 2 years ago, and next you know he's co-main event reffing the pay-per-view of what is it, Juliana Pena versus whatever chick she's fighting next, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, right? It's like a big fight, title fight, whatnot. So hopefully they figure those things out. It doesn't seem like they ever will, but we will see. Colin, what do you think of the repercussions of this fight? Like, what do you think? What do you think Jalin Turner should do next? Like, what do you think the UFC should do with Jalin Turner? Because he's in a good position, right?
Yeah, he definitely is. Let me examine that with a little bit of a reference site to my right here. Jalin is amazing. He's a great fighter. I've interviewed him several times. The tarantula. He's got the tarantula power going for him. 28 years old, just starting his prime, and he's actually got 20 overall fights and like a dozen UFC fights. 6'3" at 155, and he makes the weight, and he's just on 10 days notice. He even made it. Fighting someone on 10 days notice is not really.
Sorry, Colin. Sorry, he missed.
Oh,
this
he
time.
did miss. He did miss.
But barely. But he tried. He got naked and they put the little screen thing up and everything. He went for it.
No, didn't he make the weight after second try?
Oh, did he make it on the second try? I'm sorry.
Yeah, he made it.
I'm sorry. Okay, I take the L on that one. My bad.
No problem at all. No problem at all. But initially he did. Yeah, it was a tough call. But the interesting thing is on 10 days notice, you're really not yourself. And I was actually asking Beneil Dariush about that fight in the interview I did with Beneil 5 days earlier. And I said the undercard was supposed to be Dan Hooker against Bobby Green. Now we got Jalin Turner. And I said my feeling is Jalin is on a higher trajectory, overall looking like a little bit of a better fighter at this point in his career than Bobby Green is at 37 years old. But I said with 10 days notice, how much of a factor is that going to be? Have you experienced that yourself? And I mean, can a fighter come in? What's going to allow a fighter to come in against a guy who has a full camp on 10 days notice? And what Beneil said is the weight cut. He said it's really going to be big. Was that fighter staying in shape? Does the weight cut go at least pretty well? If so, I think Jalin will be fine personally. If someone's just coming off the couch, then probably not going to look so good. But I was with Jalin Turner all the way on this fight. I put out in a couple different spots predictions of Jalin Turner, but Bobby was live. I just thought it was a bad matchup for Bobby, and I think the 10 days notice was the only advantage that Bobby had. But Jalen's a beast. Jalin had.
Yep. Do we lose
Music.
Oh,
I'm
testing.
hearing music.
I don't hear
I'm not
anything.
hearing anything.
Now it's gone. That's so weird. I actually heard like about 12 seconds of music. I don't know what that was. Sorry about that, guy. I was like, I hear ghosts. I see dead people.
The feds
No,
are
but
watching, man. The feds are
that's
watching.
that's what it is. That's what it is. But so here's what I'm going to say. Jalin Turner, people are tripping out if they go off their top of their head and thinking, man, well, the dude's been winning, the dude's been losing. No, not at all. Technically, yes, but his only losses were 2 split decisions in this past year. Dan Hooker, a split decision could have gone his way, and Mateusz Gamrot, a split decision that I really think Jalin did win. The Hooker fight, probably he didn't, but both were razor thin decisions. And if those would have gone his way, which I don't think would have made too many people scream, then Jalin Turner would be on an 8-fight win streak. And I think he's got that confidence in his head. In reality, he knows, even though he only got 6 victories out of those 8, the 2 split decisions really were either way. So, like, really, nobody substantially got the best of Jalin for the last 8 fights, and that's over 3 3.75 years, almost 4 years. So Jalen's in a really good position. He's a bad boy. On 10 days' notice to do that, he's a stud. Big man for the division, super experienced. I like the tarantula. He's definitely in a great position. What he does next, I think you asked, John. Man, who's up there? We got Gaethje, we got Islam, we got Gaethje, we got Poirier. We now have Arman Tsarukyan. Islam at the top, Charles, and Benoit Saint Denis. Obviously, Jalen's not going to have Islam next, probably not Gaethje next, probably not Arman next. So maybe Jalin versus Chandler, Jalin versus Poirier, Jalin versus Benoit Saint Denis. I wouldn't mind seeing any of those 3. How about you guys?
Yeah, Jalen. Yeah, they got to put him somewhere where he's going to benefit off the matchup because there's a reason why Dan Hooker took the matchup. You know, what I mean, he didn't have to take Bobby Green fight. He could have just sat back and waited for somebody with a bigger name. Dan Hooker has a bigger name out there than both of these guys, right? So you gotta. I would think you could give him the same treatment that you would have gave Dan Hooker if he would have went in there and did the same thing. I think Dan Hooker would have went in there and did the same thing. To be honest with you, I think
Yeah.
Dan Hooker took that fight because he knew that it's a good scrap, but on top of that, he knew that there was a lot of advantages going into the fight. Seems like Bobby Green does have a problem with guys that are more like orthodox, you know what I mean, in their striking. Because Bobby Green or Jalin Turner used very, very, I don't want to say basic, but really like technical striking to break down Bobby Green. Bobby Green, he's an interesting phenomenon because the style that he has and how far he's come with that style of with his hands down and dipping, with against the best dudes in the world, like the best strikers in the world in the craziest division in the world, and he's a top 15, top 10 fighter. You got to give him respect. Like it's like Alex Pereira, you know what I mean? The style that he comes in with his striking, with his hands down, and he's multiple division world champion. Like it's Bobby Green will always be somebody that you would want to see fight. Jalin Turner, I think he sits back for the next couple of months and see how things play out with the division and which matchups come up, and they'll probably slide him in something. But the interesting thing about him before he fought, and I don't know if I didn't watch the full interview, but I saw some like Twitter stuff and headlines that Jalin Turner was forced to take this fight. Like people are saying that. J-Spec, did you see anything about that?
Yeah, I did, and I don't know anything about that, but I'll just throw a 2 cents out there of we've heard from fighters similar kind of, cold threats. I'll just say it, you know what I mean? The cold threat stuff like, oh, we really could use you on this fight, to fill this gap, and If you don't, I mean, I don't really know when we could find the calendar's really full for the rest of the year if if we don't get you now. Like, and you got 6 days to go fight some dude. You know what I mean? Like that's on a 5 fight win streak. But anyways, we've heard this from many men. So did it happen to Mr. Turner? I hope not. I hope not. People like him. Fans like him. He's young. He's a stud. He's on the rise. That would kind of make me sick if that's what they're doing to literally to their future crop of the stars they have built. That would be weird. But it wouldn't surprise me because this is the fight game, and productions / organizations / companies make money by grinding fighters. And if they had to take a chance to pulverize a relationship with Jalin Turner to make a fight happen with let's be honest, Bobby Green is a late star in a supernova phase of his career. I'm no disrespect. That's what's happening. And the organization is trying to capitalize on that as best they can. If they had to, scar Turner's record to do so, great. But if not, what do they get? They get stud beating veteran. Win-win for them. So once again, you got to remember, promotions in general, I hate to say it, promotions in general ain't for the fighter. They're for making money. You got to remember that. So when you hear a last minute replacement fight, you think it's because like they were like, hey, who could use a paycheck right now? They're not doing that. They didn't call anybody up. It's like, hey, who needs some extra Christmas presents for the kids? They don't do that.
No.
It's not that. They don't. It's not like a work at your work. They go, who wants overtime? That's mandatory overtime, folks. Yep. So did it happen? I don't know. Does it happen? Yeah, it does. There you go.
Yeah,
that's my take.
For real. Yeah, it's interesting what they will do with these guys. You know what I mean? The co-main and the main. Very, very important fights in the division, and the results are very, very important. We'll see. 2024 is going to be a very, very fun and interesting year for the lightweight division. Who can dethrone Islam? That's the thing. Who can dethrone him? You know what I mean? The last 2 fights that Islam has had was with a featherweight. So we'll see what happens when he actually gets back in there with the actual lightweight. Guys that believe that they could beat him. There's guys out there right now that believe that with their skill set they could beat him, and that's what I want to see. I want to see those matchups. Moving on to the next fight, bantamweight division, Davison Figueiredo versus Rob Font. Everybody was very interested to see like what Davison Figueiredo will look like at 135 pounds, and he looked incredible. When someone says to you, Colin, Davison Figueiredo will be the bantamweight world champion in the next year or so, what's your response?
Well, it's a little bit different than it was before last night. I picked Rob Font to win that fight. I just thought he was going to be too big. And if you look at both men, it's weird. I'm looking at myself. There's a delay for whatever. Anyway, if you look at both men, Rob Font looked like the bigger man. Rob Font was the bigger man in there. The experience level, though, and the polish and confidence on a 2-time world champion like Davison Figueiredo, I think, was a difference. Not only that, but he was fighting fully hydrated for the first time in a long time, and that must have felt really good. You could see it did. You could see he's like, damn, man, I should have fought like this maybe my whole career, because if it only hurts a little bit when a bantamweight hits me because I'm fully hydrated, I'm down. Like literally, Figueiredo was kind of like, okay, good, man. Go ahead and hit me because I'm fully hydrated. This is not doing anything as compared to when someone would hit me, super dehydrated. So he looked really strong. As the smaller man, I was concerned. I thought maybe that advantage and maybe Font being hungrier, which he would be. Font has never had the gold. I think I forget if Font even ever had a title fight. I don't think he did. If he did, it was a loss. And I really felt like the bigger man and the hungrier man, it would go to Font. Font did put up a really good fight, but one thing we don't think about sometimes when someone goes up in weight is, they're going to be the smaller man, but frequently they're the faster fighter. And that's what Figueiredo was. Figueiredo was quicker. He was very focused. He was feeling really good, being fully hydrated. and was just a little bit too good to Rob Font. But what you're saying, John, being someone saying about it, I wouldn't laugh or scoff now after seeing that performance. But my feeling is that he's not going to be a future bantamweight champion. If he is, that's good. I've always gotten along good with his manager, who I believe still is Waleed Ismail. I did some great interviews with Paulo Costa in person, and Waleed was with a good friend of both of my jiu-jitsu coaches, Fabiano Iha and Paulo Tiago. And so we get along really good. It's always good when I see Waleed at the press conferences. However, I'm not sure if I think Davidson's still with him. Either way, the bottom line is Davidson's a good dude. Not a huge English speaker, but through an interpreter, I've had some good back and forths with him, and solid guy, hardworking guy from a very poor family, and he takes care of his family and is just an overall solid, good dude. So I wish him the best. I think it's going to be a big ask to beat some of the top 5 guys at a bantamweight, but Rob Font was not far away from that, and he looked darn good against him. Solid performance. I think Font will be back, but this has got to be a bit discouraging for him, but very encouraging for the Davidson Figueiredo camp, and respect to both men.
Rob, did you pick Rob for this fight?
No, yeah, I did, and I feel bad about it too, bro, because I had a feeling. I went against my feeling, but I had to stick to the Rob Union, and any Rob's up to bat, all Rob's got to stick together. If you know that, it's a thing. So, man, but for real, there was the size difference part that I was worried about. And yeah, I always questioned the first change of weight. Not so much going up, definitely going down. But man, all the answers to all the questions, literally everything got answered. Like Davidson Figueiredo in this division totally belongs. Looks good. Is a contender for the belt. Like, yup. In my opinion, like firing on all cylinders. On the other side, Rob Font, man, is like he's always like the top 80 in the world, or the top 20% of the world. This is the top 10% of the world. It's just like it just sucks to see a guy who is really talented on any given day, can beat any given guy, but man, it's like he just keeps almost getting there and it gets knocked back, and almost getting there and knocks back. But I'm more happy to see a possibility of a title run in this new division. It's good to see. Also, I like to see this in the I know he's not the current champ in jumping weight class, so it's all that, but like a more of a traditional merit system when you move up in weight class. Like, yeah, you're the former champion, so you moved up, so yes, you should get a top 10er. Like, I like that whole. I know it's old school, but to me, I think it makes sense, and I liked it. So those are my thoughts on that fight.
Rob Font, man, he's getting up there in age as well. He's what, 36, and in the lower weight divisions, guys that are up there in age, they're not lasting very long, right? Rob being 36 right now and competing at the level he's at it's somewhat unheard of, right? Like, how many other guys do you know that are above 35 in flyweight or bantamweight? Not many out there that are high level, and Rob is high level. He's had, I think, like 5 main events. So he's had 5 round main event camps, fighting guys like Vera, Aldo, Sanhagen, you know what I mean? And I think that they're putting him in a position where it's like, okay, you need to beat these young guys so you could get the fights with the big guys. You know what I mean? He's in that little like gray area in the rankings. But Figueiredo, man, he's a former champ. I think from what we saw of him, I think he's becoming more intelligent as well with his approach to fighting. You know what I mean? He could have went and took more chances against Rob Font. I think he took some shots in the first round, right, from Rob Font, but then he just took over the second and third round, rocked Rob a few times, right? I think, and then took him down and dominated him. And everybody was talking about how big Rob Font was. It didn't seem like it because he was getting controlled on the ground by Figueiredo pretty easily. And I think Figueiredo can do that with a lot of guys. I want to see him fight Merab next. I think Merab they don't know what to do with him. They're not giving him a title shot. So why don't you fight a former champ like Davison Figueiredo to see if you can do that to Davison Figueiredo and even, take the shots. You know what I mean? We've seen Merab take some big shots and survive, right? So let's see if he can take the shots from Figueiredo and survive. Let's see Merab fight. You know what I mean? Let's just don't see him hanging around and just waiting for people, right? Because look what happened. He waited for Sterling to lose and he lost, and now he's not getting any fight, right? So let's
Don't
put
piss
yourself
off
in a position.
lesson to the youngsters. Don't piss off the boss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Seriously, don't piss off the boss. You got to play the game, man. You have to play the game.
Yeah.
And and you can manipulate the media so easily nowadays, right? The media is going to write about everything. Like you could take a fart and a little bit of poop comes out and they're going to write about that. It's
Yep.
just, like it's weird, some of the headlines you'll see and you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
And then,
seriously.
we had the whole Jamal Hill situation, you know what I mean, where the headline really, when you read that headline by TMZ, and I don't know why fighters are doing interviews with TMZ, because TMZ is just going to write the worst things about you, but you
Yep.
want to do interviews with those guys, right? It just makes no sense, but it is what it is. They get a lot of views, you know what I mean? They're tabloid news, you know what I mean? Who most regular people that didn't know who the hell Jamal Hill was, now they know because he's on TMZ for, it's not even like charged, right? It's like he was arrested for, a scuffle with his brother, right? Which everybody knows, that every guy knows that has a brother. Like that's just a normal thing. What could have, unless they were
Okay.
really fighting.
It is up to a certain age. These are grown, super big dudes. Like at a certain point, brotherly scraps totally stop, and it does become,
It does. Yeah, you're
just
old
violent.
enough to be like, yo, we're
Yeah.
mature.
Well,
We shouldn't be fighting each other, especially if your brother is the world champion.
I was gonna.
Come on, that's my point,
Right,
dude.
right,
That's
right.
I mean,
You're like, yo, like, don't you know who I am? Like,
I
this is
mean,
your brother.
at a certain point, the in the house wrestling matches is solved. The championships are forever. We know who's at what level, and that's just it.
Right.
And you got to also think, and in fairness to Mr. Hill, there's two sides to every story, right? There's
Of course,
two people in every fight, so we're gonna let the process figure itself out. But yeah, John, come on, right? TMZ, sensational tabloid news. Right?
Well,
nothing good's gonna come out of
Never.
talking to them.
in this day and age, you have to limit yourself from jumping to conclusions, because that's what everybody does now. They just get like a headline in a feed, or they don't read the article, or they don't know the whole story. So you just jump to conclusions like, oh, Jamal Hill, domestic violence. You just hear those words, right, on a headline, domestic violence, and you just automatically think that he attacked his wife. That's what most people think.
I
And that's
actually
what
had
it's
to,
been going on.
I actually had to explain to some guests in the space that are international that in the States, domestic violence means anybody you live with up to a month ago. So
Yeah.
like if you get a fight, you could have moved out, but if you lived with them a month ago and got into a fight, it'll classify it as domestic violence. I'm just saying, like,
This is the worst thing that could happen to Jamal Hill, especially with all the stuff that's been
Yeah.
going on with him in the media, of him like talking back to fans and just like letting them get in his head, and he's just like, oh, you talk, and then his war with Ariel. I'm just wondering what Ariel's gonna how he's gonna respond, because
Yeah, I'll
if
tell
he
you
if
my
he's
thought.
go ahead.
So I've interviewed Jalin several times. He's originally from Illinois, but he's representing Michigan for like the last 8 years or 10 years. I'm a Michigan guy, originally born and raised, and so I've always done good interviews with Jalin, and we've been working for the last year trying to arrange another interview. His schedule is crazy and everything. We haven't, but I've interviewed Jalin. I'm not Jalin. Jamal. Also interviewed Jalin Turner several times, but interviewed Jamal about 5 times, I think. Really, really good dude. Really chill. Really smart guy. He's a real guy like Bobby Green, in that he came from the streets in Illinois and is a genuine tough guy, but he's also a longtime martial artist for many years, and he's really into the psychology and the spirituality of it. So, not to be speculating, instead of being Jay Speck, I'll be Colin Speck here for a second, and I'll speculate that one of two things. if it was the brother that was trying to get out of hand, what is he trying to prove by physically attacking his brother who can beat the crap out of him probably in a matter of seconds? Why would you attack your brother who's a, world champion MMA fighter at the highest level? To me, if the brother's that crazy, then what could Jamal do about that? It just seems kind of ridiculous and silly. On the flip side of it, it's possible that like in Jamal's position, he may be taking care of his brother financially and may have just said, all right, dude, let's do this. And his brother might have said, you don't tell me what to do, this, that, and the other. But in that regard, if someone's kind of like taking care of you financially, you need to just listen to what they're telling you to do. So I'm not trying to absolve Jamal of everything here, but I would think, knowing Jamal to an extent as I do, that it just seems to me unlikely that he would decide as a professional fighter who knows how good he is, even though his brother, I'm sure, is a big man, that he would decide, let me get into a scuffle with my brother who's not a professional MMA fighter. I don't think he would do that. So, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. But then, TMZ and all this crap, it's unfortunate, and it just seems like people are looking for content, and TMZ is always going to put something bad. But I would bet you, as this unfolds, that it's going to be unlikely that that Jamal Hill was solely responsible or even have attacked his brother or anything. I wouldn't be shocked if it turns out there's not a scratch on his brother at all, but who knows, maybe his brother got mad because he said, look, I'm paying the bills here. You got to quit effing around. You got to show up and help take care of grandma and this and that. And his brother was like, no, I'm not going to do it. And let me show you by throwing a punch. Right. And then maybe when Jamal grabbed him, maybe he said, oh, you're grabbing me and you're a fighter, I'm going to call the police. You know what I mean? Because I'm mad at you. Could have gone that way. Just saying.
Possibly. I mean, we don't know the scenarios, right? So
Right. No.
maybe it is for a scratch. Maybe he scratched him. He's like, oh my god.
Right. Look at this. Look what you did. You're a fighter, and now I got a scratch on my face.
And just throwing out things that are settled now, but like, remember when Chael got arrested, right? And everybody wanted to go bananas about that, but then when you really hear the story, it's like, actually, he did something everybody would do. Everybody would defend,
Well, Chael's,
yeah, you defend your.
He's on the roids, right? So you know how it is when you're on the roids.
But just like, and then Chuck, remember Chuck got arrested, and at
Chuck's
first
on the roids too,
But it wasn't him.
Is a hell of a condition. CT
he
is
did
a
it,
hell
but
of a
he
condition.
didn't. But he didn't hit her
right now.
I'm just saying he didn't hit her though.
I'm not talking about like that. I'm just saying.
So it's just like we find out these stories, and sometimes there's dirtbags that are the CTE stuff and all that shit's real, and then sometimes it's not what happened.
And I'm telling you right now, like CTE is something that is like it's real. It's real. Like look at John Jones's brother, Chandler Jones. Have you seen some of the videos coming out of him just like going live and just like he's wild right now. He was one of the best defensive players in the NFL. Now he's like sitting in his mansion making weird videos and getting high. Like it's crazy. Like John Jones is a unique character as well, right? He's been doing some wild things himself, but like his brother is even like weirder, man. I think it is CTE, man. I think it's the brain is, you can't study it. You can't cut it open and see what happens, right? It sucks to see. I think they need to study it more. I mean, hopefully there are more places, more, I don't know, labs or whatnot studying it, but that's what it is, man. And who knows, man? We don't know the full story. I can't just jump on Jamal Hill's side and say like, this is what happened. This is what I think what happened. And I can't just jump on the other side because why? You don't know what happened. You don't know what happened. So, but you know what did happen is TMZ wrote that article and that headline, and it was kind of a shitty thing to do because people are going to jump to conclusions. Please, just don't jump to conclusions. Let things slide and work out. But anyways, you know what's not jumping to conclusions? The app, because the app is real. You could go download that thing on the descriptions and make picks, right? Join JSpec's League and win prizes. Let's move on to the next fight, a welterweight battle between Kelvin Gastelum, who looked phenomenal on the scales all week, looked in high spirits. Man, he just did not look good at all against Sean Brady. I think Sean Brady, you got to put some respect on his name. I think a lot of people jumped off the bandwagon for that Bilal fight, and I think Sean Brady, he's a guy that has a unique skill set in that welterweight division, and I think he could beat a lot of guys with that skill set. You know, it's hard to say if he'll become a champion, because I think to become a champion, you need to have a certain level of the striking, right? Unless you're like a Habib. Can Sean Brady be the Habib of the welterweight division? Who knows? Who knows? Because there's a lot of good grapplers. There's a lot of good wrestlers in that division, right? So, but I think he has super potential, right? And he just reminded us against Kelvin Gastelum. I think Kelvin Gastelum needed this fight, and I believe that he'll be back at welterweight and he'll win some fights against some big names. I think that's what will happen. What do you do with Sean Brady next, Colin?
And I'll answer that question, but just let me go back to stick in my real quick thought. This was a pick'em fight in the odds, and rightfully so. I ended up picking Gastelum, but I pretty much said this could go either way, and I said either Gastelum is going to be too much for him because his striking is better than Sean Brady's, or Gastelum is going to look weak, and in reality, he made the weight, but it was really tough to me. He looked like he didn't have much left, in all honesty. The better wrestler and the more decorated wrestler of the two is indeed Kelvin Gastelum. Sean Brady had no business taking Kelvin Gastelum down like that, and it wouldn't have happened at 185. But basically what we saw here early on is that Brady knew that Gastelum was the better striker. Gastelum was the bigger man. And basically, Brady also knew that he would be seriously derailed from his focus and goal of getting to the top of the welterweight division if he lost. And so he had tremendous motivation. Gastelum, 2 years older, 34 to 32, not that big a difference, but I feel like in Gastelum, you have an older 34-year-old with a ton of miles on him in the UFC since he won the Ultimate Fighter, I think at age 21 or something, against a 32-year-old with not as much mileage on him. Basically, it looked like you had a Brady who was super motivated, super focused, fighting with absolute razor focus and tremendous determination and intent against a Kelvin Gastelum who looked like from the beginning he knew he didn't have much in the tank, and basically was, I hate to use this term because it's kind of silly, but looked almost like a deer in the headlights to an extent. He almost looked like he could feel he was on autopilot. He was depleted. The weight cut was too hard, as it always had been for him for the most part at 170, and that this fight was going south and was going to keep going south. And it's unfortunate because could have been a really close matchup if Gastelum had more left and shut down those takedowns. I think he could have started to light up Brady. But the thing that Gastelum had to worry about was Brady was definitely the better jiu-jitsu guy, and Gastelum had been subbed on several occasions, and he got subbed again. And Brady's jiu-jitsu is really, really good. He's a good, solid black belt. So bravo to Sean Brady getting the win where he needed. To me, he kind of fought a little bit of a shell of Kelvin Gastelum there. I like Kelvin, but unlike you, John, I'm not very confident in what he does from here at welterweight. I'm really not. I feel like the weight cut was a part of what we saw in play there. And I really could be wrong just because I'm old and you're younger than me, I'm sure, although you guys are not 20 years old. I know that. But I still, what I'm saying is it doesn't mean I know more than my boys here, because I don't. So I'm just saying, though, my thought is I'm not sure we're going to see something good out of Kelvin. I hope we do. But that was a flat performance, and I'm sure Kelvin and his team are not happy with that. Sean Brady, where he goes from here, I like Sean Brady. I really do like Sean Brady. Who's up there at 170? We got Bilal. Maybe he might want to see him. I'm sure he'd love to get that one back from Bilal. We've got Leon Edwards, Colby Covington, Shavkat Rachmanov. Man, talk about You know, it'd be interesting, really quick, not to go down a new rabbit hole. Would imagine if they went over to Brady and said, "Man, you look so good, and now you're on a 1-fight win streak. Like you're ready for Shavkat, aren't you? Let's set that fight." And if I was Brady's camp, I would say, "Now let's hold off on that fight." But I think he's up there. But there's some very very badass dudes up there. You know, even Wonder Boy, Luque, and Luque's going up against, who does Luque have on the card 2 weeks from now? Vicente Luque. Luque's going against Ian Gary. Yeah, so look at it. We got so Sean Brady is a force, but you got some serious badasses above him. They're all going to be able to make the weight just fine. They're young. They're younger fighters. Several are younger than him. And so to me, I think if they're going to make Sean Brady only face guys above him from here, he just had his last easy fight. I think from here, Brady's going to have to be really, really flawless to beat guys like Ian Gary, even guys like Vicente Luque, Gilbert Burns, Shavkat, Leon Edwards, Colby. I think Brady's better damn well be on his game, because if he's not, if 100%, then any of those guys could possibly beat the brakes off of Sean Brady. But maybe they won't. Just my 2 cents.
Well, looking at the AllStar app with the rankings, I see a name, and I don't know if he's booked because I don't keep up with the bookings because that stuff changes all the time. Good luck to everybody who does keep up with that. But man, right above him, I see an aging fighter who has a good name that he could beat, and his name right above him, Jeff Neal, man.
Jeff Neal, I was just thinking you were going to say that.
Yeah, Jeff Neal. That's I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't know the contractual obligations at the time, but if I was, around Sean Brady, I'd be like, yeah, bro, 2 spots above you, right there. That's one.
And Shavkat struggled with him. Shavkat really struggled with Jeff Neal. That was a really even fight until Shavkat got that standing rear naked choke.
Jeff's a good fighter, so that's
love to see it. That's matchmaking. You heard it from Jay Speck.
My random thought.
Jay Speck called it. Love that fight.
There you go. Then what do you do with Gastelum? What do you think of Gastelum, Jay Speck? I just think Gastelum, he is older. You know what I mean? Like you said, that's clear as day. When a fighter is much older, you gotta put on the kid gloves, right? A little bit with them. I think Gastelum, he needed this fight to show him like the level of the talent pool right now in welterweight. It's different from when you fought at welterweight. These guys are much better. He needed that reality check. I think the weight cut stuff, I think he's past that. It could affect him, but it helps him to do one. And then now the next one, he can make the adjustments because he's stuck on staying at welterweight. Like he knows that he needs to fight these guys.
Yeah.
If he loses his next couple of fights, I wouldn't be surprised, right? Because the level of competition has changed. Yeah. He's much older, but if he came back and got the proper matchups for him, not a top 15 guy, but a guy that maybe a name, but someone that he can beat, someone like a veteran. What do you think, Jay Speck?
Okay, so I totally agree with the possibility, because he's not like old. The possibility 34. Of him of settling into the weight class that could be a thing. He could settle in.
No, he's old. 34 is old.
Is pretty for yeah, but he could settle into this weight change. This. I've said it before. I've said it tons of times. A big fade and auto fade you can find in your life, I've seen it tons of times, is past 30 years old, veteran fighter past 30 years old, going down a weight class. I talked about this earlier in the show a little bit. I don't know the exact numbers, but it is really not in favor of the first fight for that fighter in that new weight class. Now, what happens for that fighter later on is their own story. But that first fight for a fighter after 30 in a lower weight class, it always goes like this. This is the script. This is how it works. So, with that being said, Mr. Gastelum, I think one, I hope, okay, what I hope is that you do well. But what I think is you're going to have to do what we talked about, what John was just alluding to, crank that knob down on the difficulty level, get some wins. Everybody respects your name, bro, but we got to get some shine back on your name. You're taking a little too many L's. So get some shine, get some dubs, and, get the Gastelum stack rising again. I think that would be like John said, someone on the verge of the 15, maybe someone with a name, something like that. That would be cool. But yeah, man, times have changed and they change fast. And the weight cut this time was a factor. Later on, maybe it won't be. And we'll just have to see. That part's just unwritten yet, unwritten so far. But yeah, man, good contest, good showing for Mr. Brady. Not the best showing for Mr. Gaslam. That's just how it goes sometimes.
All right, and we have the prelims, right? So
I
there
can't
was a
wait to
lot
talk
of
about this.
crazy moments on the prelims. You know, a couple comeback fights, a couple
MMA
comeback victories,
history, MMA
but
history happening.
MMA history happened. But I think I'll focus on the most impressive performances from the prelims. And I'm gonna put it out there. I think the most impressive fighter on the prelims, and he should have. I don't know if he got a bonus or not, but he should have got a bonus because this man like really shook up. I think a lot of people's parlays, which was Dustin Stoltzfus. Like he went in there and just showed so much improvement from. I think a lot of people thought that he wasn't even in the UFC anymore, and he gets matched up against Puna Soriano, who is one of the most disappointing fighters I've ever watched come up in that middleweight division. He's so disappointing, dude. Like he has all the talent, he has all the coaches. It just he can't put it together for some reason. Dustin Stoltzfus stood in there in the pocket against Punasori. He was that confident in his game plan, in his in his skill set to go in there and do that, and then ended up choking him out in the second round. Dustin Stoltzfus, man, this guy, after getting COVID 4 times and 2 times he had the long COVID, has just come out. This was his coming out party, man. Like he just really showed out. Like, and his mentality to fighting is like every fight's my last fight. I don't know what I'm getting cut by the UFC, so it's just like whatever. Let me focus and let me do my thing. And man, he went out there and did it. Colin, we'll go to you first. Who was the most impressive on the prelims and why?
Well, I definitely like Stoltzfus, and I'm looking, and I always wonder what that means. It means proud foot. Or also it could have been a nickname for someone with a peg leg or someone who used crutches. So that's
Oh,
what Stoltzfus means, proud foot or peg
yeah.
leg. He was very impressive. Felt bad for Puna. I know Puna's a Hawaiian like our J Spec, and he's such a cool dude. I interviewed Puna. Puna's not a big one who loves interviews. I think I had to chase Puna around for weeks because he doesn't love doing interviews. But couldn't have met a nicer guy when I met him and talked to him. What I like about Puna is he really is this kind of easygoing Hawaiian in the greatest sense of the word. Like I could see Puna standing outside where things are exploding and people are going crazy and people are attacking. And I could literally see Puna going, that Hawaiian thing, like, all right, it's all good, right? We're all, like Puna is a chill, strong-minded guy. He's a dude that you want to have as a friend because he's not going to be upset when shit happens. But yeah, it's damn, he's such a strong guy, and he's a disciplined guy. The dude's always in shape. He always looks good, always a gentleman. And I am disappointed in how some of the fights have gone. I really am, because I like Puna a lot. He's a good dude. But yeah, Stoltzfus looks impressive. My feeling is that the most impressive, obviously, the underdog upset wins, both by slam, by my man from Michigan and under the tutelage of the great Coach Mark Montoya, who I've interviewed several times and is one of my all-time favorite people in this business. Probably my favorite coach right now is Mark Montoya, and he's battling cancer like my wife is, and in remission, and is just a super impressive person and one of the nicest guys out there, one of the very best coaches. So great win for Team Factory X and Cody Brundage. Love that. And he was impressive. Also, Drakkar Close. You saw Courtney Casey, another Hawaiian for J Spec. Courtney Casey looked really pretty with her full weight, not dehydrated. I think she's pregnant or as a baby and got her big dimples there. I love seeing her with that big smile on her face, watching her guy Drakkar win. So I'm gonna say though that that those were super impressive, but Miesha Tate. I know, love her, hate her. A lot of people don't like her. A lot of people like her. But literally before that fight, I was saying, man, I got to put something out on X. Just say, guys, jump on Miesha Tate. And I'm like, nah, I don't like to be that guy. And I don't want to be the one that's causing someone to actually bet more money in the last second than they've already bet, because most people's bets were already in. So I held off on doing it. But I just said something in me told me Miesha looks so focused. She looked so dialed in. She looked like so confident. And I've seen every Miesha televised fight from Strike Force and before. I interviewed Miesha, and I'm starting to get a good feeling about Miesha's body language and vibes. And the whole week of publicity, Miesha looked like she was really dialed in. And Julia Avila is a badass, a tough girl, but I just knew she was going up against someone more experienced. And on top of that, Miesha's an intense girl. Misha's like she's very chill and nice to talk to, but she's a wrestler. She's got that wrestler grind. And Miesha went in there and just said, like, please, I'm not going to give this girl a chance. You get nothing from me. I'm going to beat the brakes off you like a redheaded stepchild. And that's what she did. And so I would give it to Miesha Tate if I had to say, but super impressed. Veronica Hardy, with the name Hardy, Veronica now all of a sudden is Veronica Macedo 2.0. I've always liked her. I think she can speak like 6 languages. She's one of the classically beautiful girls without makeup, even in the sport. Not that that has anything to do with fighting, but like, who doesn't like a really pretty girl who is super intelligent and speaks 5 languages? I'm happy to see her winning, because I think she actually is a really marketable person. And yeah, props to Jared Gooden. Bellato looked great. Watch Joaquim Silva, but yeah, I'd have to give it to Miesha Tate if forced. And then, bravo to the underdogs. Underdogs are live. And as you guys know from AllStar, that's how you can make some money. Find someone who's a dog that you feel really has a pretty decent chance. And frequently, a lot of them will hit on a card. Sorry for making that the long answer, but just my thoughts.
It's good,
J-Spec, what
bro.
do you got?
You know what I'm gonna say? I was hyped about it when it was happening. I was flipping my lid. I called it that it was history, and then like 5 minutes later, they put the graphic on the screen. Guys, just like you, I've been watching this forever, literally since day one. I'm a day one fan. I've been watching all the major organizations, every fight out there for so long. I've seen so much good stuff that sometimes when something amazing happens, it just sends me back to a place where I'm so glad that MMA is still so young, that this is still all a work in progress, and that the slams, 2 of them, 2 on a card, never happened. 2 back to back, like the fight gods were having fun with us. They gave us a gift. It was so fun to see. Man, and all I'm gonna say is carry on, Hawaiian. Bro, diversify, please, because you got a killer left hand, but you got to show us more of your other stuff, because right now boys are kicking you in the middle and they're figuring you out. So go get them, Puna. Love you, bro. And other than that, that's all I gotta say about the prelims. Thank you for MMA history to the 2 fighters who did.
All right.
Indeed.
So there you go. My last thoughts on the prelims is that, Miesha Tate, she's always going to be a factor. I don't know. I think she'll be able to fight until she's like 50. Like
Seems like it.
Yeah. She doesn't look like she's slowing down. She does kind of have the skill set to be able to last that long in the division as well. Great grappler. Wrestling is solid. And yeah, and she gets you down. A lot of the girls can't get back up. And she's getting stronger, it seems like. So shout out to her. And yeah, the Veronica Hardy, she's one of my favorite peoples to chat with. I actually chat with her a lot,
Oh, wow.
DMs and stuff. So she's cool.
Tell her she's got a fan and an MMA media guy here, Colin Crandall. I'd love to talk to her. I'm not trying to get you to set up interviews for me, but you just tell her she's a fan. I like.
She probably knows who you are, man. She watches
awesome.
a lot of interviews herself. So yeah,
I'm gonna hit her up then. I'm gonna hit her up then,
yeah.
because it's funny how I'm a fan of so many of these people, but like it'd be funny to talk to someone that I really liked for a while. So yeah, I'm gonna work that. But anyway, let me get you back to John. Go ahead. But she's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm
and
so happy for her.
also Jared Gooden, man, coming back after getting beat down in the first round and getting that rear naked choke, man. He's reviving his career, getting signed again. A lot of these fighters, you know what I mean? It's true, man. It's not over when you get cut for the first time. You could always work yourself back and work hard, you know what I mean? And you get an inspiration from that. Just regular people can get inspiration from that. And that's what fighting is about, man. It's about inspiring everybody to do what they want to do. So props to all of these people. Can't wait until the next show. The next show actually is going to be UFC Vegas 83, I believe. They had the Shanghai card. They moved it to Vegas because of some reasons. I heard behind the scenes. What was the reasons behind the scenes? That something to do with the venue. Something to do with the venue. From behind the scenes, what I heard. Something to do with the venue, and that's why they couldn't lock it down. But that could be complete bullshit. Who knows, right? Behind the scenes, everybody's saying shit. Like you got at Magic Mike 54 breaking fight news nowadays, right? It's just like, what's the point? What's the point even paying attention to that stuff? Like that. It's not who's an insider. We don't know. Everybody's just listening to stuff go on in chat rooms and then breaking news. I like the fake breaking news accounts though. They're hilarious.
Those are fun. Those are fun.
Those are the best. Those are the best. But the people out there, like they're, I used to do that, and I was just like, man, it's a waste of time for me. Like it's just too stressful. Because if you want to do it the right way, you gotta reach out to both sides, and both sides have to say like yes, and then you post it out there, not like, oh, my source told me. Who's your source? Donkey Kong? Like come on. So, anyways. Next week, we'll be back after that card to break it down. Same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, I believe. Yeah, 5 p.m. Pacific. And thank you, Colin, man, for joining us and giving your insight. And anything you want to say before you bounce out?
Well, I'm so happy to have jumped in here with you guys. Love chopping it up with my fellow experts that have been at this for a long time. Just getting a chance to meet my man Korean John here. Very impressed with you. Know my man Jay Speck, the host, Rob, for quite a while, and a lot of respect for him. It's funny, man. Seeing, we always see like some pictures of ourselves on our file, but seeing Rob, man, you look like a Hawaiian relative of mine. Like if you look at it, right, take some age off me, right, get me a little bit of black hair back.
You kind of do look like each other.
I was gonna say, man, this is my brother from Hawaii, my long lost brother from another mother.
I'm mixed blooded. I'm happy to share love with everybody, man.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. And yeah, it was just a pleasure to be here mixing it up with you guys and hearing your insight and basically just you guys keep following this All-Star MMA Live as you do. These guys know their stuff. I will testify that, and I've been following this sport since before UFC 1, having a copy of the press kit for UFC 1 prior to the event, and I watched the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in action VHS tapes about 2 years before UFC 1. So I've been following this for a while. Old dog, as you can see, and my guys here, they know their stuff. Happy to mix it up with you guys anytime. And for me, I did MMA Power Hour for almost 7 years as a video podcast. You guys can see hundreds of hours of archives on my channels all around social media. Also, the Hannibal TV on YouTube. Done a lot of cool interviews. Interviewed action movie star Frank Grillo. They put about 8 seconds of me in the Conor McGregor documentary where I was interviewing Conor and Cowboy Cerrone and from UFC 245. And a bunch of other. Michael Bisping took his eye out on my MMA Power Hour episode for me because he said he really liked the questions and I know my stuff, and not trying to toot my own horn, but got some great content. If you guys want to see me also doing MMA from London to LA with my man Callum Sanderson from England. And, that's how you guys can see me, but always stay tuned over here for the best MMA information and story, perspectives, opinions, and quality fight picks.
All right, J-Spec, remind everybody where they can find you and the spaces and what's going on with the app and the league.
I appreciate that, John. Well, right there on X or Instagram. I'm on Instagram just a little bit. I'm mainly on X. With the league, the All-Star, download it. Already have it. Join anybody's league. Make your own. Make some with your friends. Join mine. Also, we do spaces on the X app every UFC event. We got literally hundreds of fans just like you come by. There's no pressure or no amount of time you got to be in there. come by, share your thoughts. You know, it's all a good time. There's no hate in the room. It's literally international. We have international fans, and it makes it really fun because we learn so much stuff in a single fight. It's hard to even explain. I'm going to be giving away some awesome prizes as well. So in the meantime, thank you to everyone. Thank you, AllStar, for providing such a great app for everyone to use. And see you guys next week.
There you go. All right. We'll be back next week, same time, and we'll see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Peace out.